coming up on the payoff. Celebration of big bro Kevin Sousa's life from 1970 to present day and all in between. It's been a very rough stretch for a lot of people, and I think this is one way to soften the blow, at least for the next 90 minutes. It's a very cool conversation with me and my brother Mike, and again, it is a celebration of the legend that was and forever will be and is our big brother, Kevin Sousa.
Oh yeah, dude. I did.
So real talk. I'm not like especially with what's been going on, just trying to figure out exactly how we're gonna navigate through, these memorials coming up. Like I'm not like necessarily. I think this will be good for me.
I'm same spot, man. I'm kind of like, there's been a lot, and I was like, wow, like it's good to kind of go through this, especially with all the nonsense, not nonsense, all the emotion around the family lately. It'll bring us back to like what the core principles are
Yeah.
of the whole situation, which is that our brother, is no longer with us.
Have you felt it at all in the days past? Like, I definitely have felt like a presence with me for sure at times. Today was the first day, by the way, or yesterday was the first day
Here we are.
where something happened, and I would have called Kevin right away.
So you're saying you felt his presence being missed, or you felt him with you?
Well, I feel him with me from time to time. I definitely do. Like, I think about him and I see it. Usually it's when I'm outdoors. But then yesterday was the first time something happened to me where I was like, I would call him right away to get his take on this.
Yeah.
Like right away. I need to hear what he'd have to say.
Yeah, I had a situation similarly 2 days ago when we were dealing with our wonderful and beloved mother, and one of her takes on something that was
This
a
is not
little,
Stephen A. Smith, Mike.
what?
One of her takes.
Well, I'm trying to, I don't like, one of her insane thoughts that we were processing, and it was hilarious that she was being funny, ridiculous, really. But I would have immediately called him and be like, dude, I don't know what to do. Like, you should hear our mother. That would have been like, and he'd have been like, and he'd have loved it. It's like he loved hearing that stuff because it wasn't him,
And he also grew to a place, and we'll go backwards in a second here. He grew to a place where he almost was like, all right, what's she gonna do next? Like he kind of had like an adjustment to it where he wasn't necessarily so caught up in what was happening, but he was a spectator of what was happening rather than being caught up in the eye of the storm.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, and like you said, we'll go backwards. The last year, and specifically the last 6 months, he got to a spot that it's not one of those things where you look back and go, well, now that he's passed away, well, you could feel it as we were going through it. Like we commented to each other about like, God, look at the way, I can't believe he's handling this situation like that, or he's interacting with this person, and like, God, he's just letting it play out. And I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
We said that a couple times, I'm sure.
Our good friend Nata Morris said over the weekend that he got the greatest hits version of Kevin Sousa because he's heard a lot of us talk about our lifetime experiences with Kevin and the body of work, and he's nobody's ever a finished product, but Kev really was, throwing 100 miles an hour, and in all facets of life, which is why it is such a tragedy, and why a lot of us feel like this was taken from us. If we have I don't know if we have a human perspective, really. I mean, you have to really work to get in the right perspective, right?
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing, like the motions are just up and down, like sadness. I mean, I have been angry several times, but I talk about it with people, like like really angry, and just overwhelmed with sadness. But one of the things I'm sure we'll talk about is that I don't, nor did he, and I know because of talking with you, have any regrets with the way our relationships ended, and the piece of that is just huge. But yeah, I mean, I've been angry, I've been sad, I've been like baffled. It's been all over the place. It's been a really, really difficult time, but at the same time, there's been a lot of beauty in it, that we've been able to recognize, and a lot, God, do we still laugh about stuff like a bunch of idiots? It's like sad almost.
So at the start, Mike, you were born in 1972.
Yes. Is this, I mean, was this like a test?
Mm-mm.
73.
So
We did
Kevin
this
was
the first time I was on the podcast. And by the way, thanks for having me back. It must be like sweeps or something. We started out with math, so this is great.
That's right. That's right.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, and you are, by the way, how many years sober are you?
16 and a little 16 and a half, really.
Okay. So if you're just tuning into this podcast and you listen to it because of a message of recovery, my three brothers and I've talked about, my two brothers and I, we're all sober. Kevin has just passed away. Cancer literally just ravaged his brain about 2.5 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. He hasn't even been 2 weeks yet since he passed. And Mike and I are here to celebrate the guy he was, the guy he will always be, the legacy he left. But nobody knows those early years better, Mike, than you, because mom is delusional and dad is dead.
Yeah. I get to rewrite history now, don't I?
By the way, do you want to do the mom disclaimer?
Yeah. Yes, I think it's important. Mom, if you are tuning in, and we are sure that you are, we love you so very much. We could not have asked for a better mom, and this is all truthful.
That's very true.
It is. I mean, just warm, wonderful, and loving, and to see you recover from this stroke with such vigor has been amazing. There will be some things here, as in my first podcast, that may be revealed that may, make you upset. But there's no intent, and you're loved to the moon and back.
Well, do you remember the way it played out? Michael was my second or third podcast guest, and guess who called? We do the podcast. We put the podcast up here at Rogue Media Network, and the first person that calls Mike and I is Kevin, because mom had just called him and was talking about all the things that we talked about on this podcast. And really that got in the way. Kevin was like, "Hey, I'm not going to do this until a little later down the line, because I don't."
He's like, "Look, him and mom have been on a journey. I know. I guess we're all over the place, but it's your show. Rein us in if you need to. Like the journey, it really came to a beautiful place, but." That was a couple of years ago, and there were some ups and downs, and he's like, I don't know if this is good timing for me to be a guest on the pod, because mom's feedback was aggressive.
It was aggressive, yes. So I want to go back to the early stages of his life. You guys grew up in Connecticut, and then you moved to Washington, D.C. Do you remember anything about Kevin before you guys moved to Washington, D.C., when you guys were little kids growing up in Connecticut, where dad's
No,
from?
I mean, the Connecticut, no. I remember D.C., like Virginia, where we lived. We just, like, there was a park down the street we would go hang out at. I mean, I was 3, he was 5. So, he was I think he would just started smoking, and it was like the park, he knew where to go to hang out. But like we were just hanging out a lot because, but when we got to PA, it was, I mean, what my earliest memories of him were like of a really caring brother, like just, he was 2 years older than me. And he was a really, like, when we were young, great big brother. I mean, we didn't fight that much. I mean, you were born, I think, we fought a lot, but in a positive way. I don't know. It made us closer, but no, you were the youngest, and Kevin and I had a really good relationship. And what were you? Because what are your earliest memories of him? Because I can go.
I don't have many. I mean, I don't have many early on. I mean, because really, and this is my next question to you. I mean, he was 7 years older than me. which is a huge chunk of time in life. And then when you get down to the early stages of life, you know, first grade to seventh grade is like, I mean, I remember when he won the championship in eighth grade at St. Thomas Good Counsel, they might as well have won the Super Bowl. I mean,
I felt the same way.
as far as I was concerned, you know, and but that was back. I think there was a time in grade school and elementary where Kevin really was that like kinder soul that you mentioned, just like authentic Kev out of the womb. And then
It,
circumstances and stuff happened around us, like any family, right?
yeah. I mean, he was very sweet, like very loving. And you know, I think as the friction between him and dad grew as the oldest, look, it's like anything, you know, like your first time trying something, you know, it's going to be a bit of a shit show. And you're the oldest child, you're getting the test, you know, the parents figuring their way out. So the oldest is typically, in my opinion, going to have it the roughest if you have parents who are still figuring themselves out, right? So he definitely had, you know, some friction with dad, and I think that brought an edge to him as we got to high school. Because really, I remember him like grade school, St. Thomas, that ridiculous zipper cut down the middle of his head, but like always looking out for me, you know. And even in high school, but in high school he started to develop that edge, you know.
Yeah. How
Like,
did I was going to say? Do you have a first experience when you were like, Jesus Christ, like this guy's got balls. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, with dad, or with, I mean, when he got his,
with dad.
I mean, yeah, you know, there was a little Donnybrook in the kitchen one time, you know, that got physical.
Which to us, right, was like it was like Godzilla and King Kong had decided to fight in our kitchen. It was amazing.
It was like it was chaos. I mean,
Kevin wanted to go out, I think, as I remember, and take the car. Dad was like, "You're not going anywhere." You know, this is loosely
yeah,
based on what I on reality, but this is what I remember. And then they got into a fight in the kitchen as Kevin tried to literally go out when Dad said,
and dad's like, "You're not leaving,"
yeah.
and little table got knocked over. I mean,
There was a dent in the wall
yes, yeah.
before the
And my
kitchen got
God,
redone.
I remember mom swept you in her arms, sobbing up to the room because you were so scared.
I mean, that's probably true. Most
I
of
don't know if that
the
happened, but
yes,
it
that's
sounds
probably
good. I
true.
get to invent that. Uh,
So that's probably true. But so that's kind of stuff that was defining him. I think that started to define him, at least to me. That I was like, wow, this guy is really cool. He's got
mhm.
huge balls, and I looked at him as like a courageous individual because as good as Dad was to me, you know, Kevin fighting in the face of authority.
Yeah.
I felt like he was a man of the people. He was fighting for us
Oh
in a way.
Jesus. Yeah,
I
real
really
freedom
did. I mean,
fighter.
I'm being silly, but
Yeah.
I wasn't so opposed to him being anti-establishment when it came
Dude,
to the family.
he stood up to dad and for himself, and I didn't have the balls or confidence to do that almost ever until, you know, my 30s, right? So I mean, like, he did it whether it was out of necessity or it was just inherent. Like he did it. And you know, I dealt from a place of fear for most of my life until I got sober, and started working on myself. You know, fight or flight, he was fighting.
Yeah,
I mean, he was
that's
fighting.
I always talk about like I never developed like that skill set to like talk to girls or to like I would
He
be,
had it.
but he did have it. He
Yeah.
naturally had it, and he did develop a certain set of skills that I never ever even developed. And you can say
Me,
because of alcoholism or whatever, but Kevin, like he went through a lot of the super awkward stuff that turned him into a young man who was willing to face some controversy, go out on his own, and take his licks.
which is this is why Kevin was so special to us at, like, because you and I, 4 years apart, or five, are very similar with our um humor, our outlook on life, the fears we had growing up, how we masked them, and the courage we got from drugs and alcohol. And Kevin was not that. He is a deep thinker. He is very intelligent. Not that we're not, but in a different way, maybe. Like, he's very cerebral. And he could talk to like anybody, and he had that courage of like talking to women, of and he was the oldest, and he paved the way for us.
When was your first experience? You go to high school with him, and he kind of becomes like a bit of a rock star in his
Well,
in his own right.
let me just say that like the rock star part started like in the morning. He got his license and he drove. I think it was myself, Neil Cross, and maybe Joe Watch to school every day. And it was a mix of the Police, the Who, or Howard Stern. And that dude was driving. I mean, if you find Neil Cross and ask him, it was scary. Like, he didn't give a shit about, like, I mean, he was taking curves at like, he's that guy, like 55 on the way to school. Like, we'd get out of there, like, it was frightening, but that was every day. Like,
One time
radio.
I told him, he was driving me and like Frank Foley or somebody. And I was like, hey, like, you were driving kind of fast. And he was like, and he waited till Frank got out of the car. He's like, don't ever tell me. I was so scared. I was like, all right, all right, all right. It was, he took me, he had to, remember he used to umpire Little League games?
Oh my God.
He was like, he was like stuck with me. He's like, you sit in the car. I got to ump this game. And so I watched him ump this game. I mean, you've never seen a bad umpire with more bravado, right? And he was probably great, but he was like, steer out. You're like sitting guys down. He's got like a Who t-shirt on and like, he's just not ready at all. Yeah.
Dude, and that's the thing, that like we saw him as this, and I'm not going to say a bully, like he wasn't to us, but as an older brother, he was an older brother. So like to us, he was the guy who, as he thoughtfully, as he got older, communicated with other people. He would still talk to us like, dude, you're a moron. What's wrong with you? Like, not a lot of people saw that because of our dynamic. And it was like
ultimately became like a love language.
Yes.
There was a point in time where I couldn't stand it. And then really, over the past like 10 years or so, we talked about it, you really couldn't get enough of it, because that was like, you felt like I know I was, and so were you. We were in a specific, we were inside.
Yes.
And that was like, that was a very special thing.
Yeah. But when in high school, he started playing the guitar, and he was in that band Final Cut. And man, he played a couple of like a soft hop. I was a sophomore and he was a senior. At soft hop. And then he was in the play Leader of the Pack. And man, like it was like my sophomore year when he became a star. Like, and I did not begrudge that. Like, I still, as I think about it now, I get goosebumps. Like, I remember looking at him like, holy shit, I want to be him. Like he was up there, like,
Me too.
He's playing like in front of 50 people, right? But like,
dude, honestly, I swear it was more than that. The whole Carroll Auditorium was full every night, right? And word had spread. I mean, but word had spread that this was a terrific play. And I think it was a couple weekends, like back-to-back weekends. And he was amazing.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Bell and I were just talking about it. He said he remembers the St. Thomas Good Counsel, his class, like they all went. And Jimmy was like, Jimmy grew up with Kevin in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Older. Jimmy was like, I know that guy. It was one of those moments for
yeah.
And it took, I got to imagine too, and that, Kevin was a football player. Most of his friends were football players. So that's a huge, you're definitely stepping outside of the box in the comfort zone, kind of being like, I'm going to do this. I don't give a shit.
Which is like a throwaway almost until you really think about the dynamics of high school. Like, he was like, I'm doing this. And 6 or 7 of the football team came out and they played parts in the chorus. I remember, because of that. And dude, the guy was like,
were you didn't do it, did you?
No, they wouldn't let. I mean, you would have loved that, right? Dude, get away from me now.
And I think there were sparks flew and there was a romance with the girl that was the lead. Is that true?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it was a scandal. And look, like Kevin's life, up until the last 10-15 years, it is famedom and scandal.
So what happened? Do you remember?
Oh yeah. So he had this awesome girlfriend who I won't mention by name. I mean, I don't know what
Lynn K.
what kind of lawyers we have here at
Yeah,
Rogue Media.
yeah.
Um, yeah, Lynn Kay, and they were like 2 years, and she was awesome. Family dinners, all the
Always
stuff.
over. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And him, like just like any Hollywood story, him and his leading lady start hooking up. I mean, like, and then they were having a whatever affair. I don't know.
Foreign
And
affair, Mike.
I get, can you have an affair then? I don't know. And then next thing you know, LK is no more, and he's dating this girl, and it was over before
That
it
was the end.
started.
That was like literally a blip, right on the radar.
A blip, yeah, but it was Kevin, right? And that's like that really, because although we've heard his story, I don't know that he shared it really publicly at all, but drinking and drugs, he started drinking probably senior year in high school, and that's the beginning of really where he became the rock star in the Scandal. That was his life for a
What
long
about some of
time.
the parties he had at mom and dad's house? That was,
Oh,
I mean, that was pretty. Again, I would be upstairs and he'd like just stay up there, and he would have a ton of people come over.
yeah, look, we had
Mom and dad would be at the Big East tournament.
mom and dad would be at like a Galifty's 5 minutes away, and there'd be something going on at the house. But yeah, that they were awesome. I mean, his friends were great. It was like, just huge parties. I do remember that, you being 7 years younger, you had some of your first drinks and some chewing tobacco, I believe, and then
And I threw up
everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was pissed the next
of
morning.
course he was. You ruined his party, little moron.
He was pissed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like it was always, I was. It's like the same as today. Your perspective's off. I should have been so happy just to be a part of that, but I always wanted to be like the inner part of it. But I mean, the fact that I was even just around that, amazing, amazing childhood memories.
And the ones with him and those guys from the neighborhood, when we got the dunk hoops, like we played every day. Like he was outside with us every day. I mean, look, we had it was a great, like youthful experience. It was amazing, and he was a great big brother. And then in high school, man, to watch him up there.
You were talking, yeah. Go ahead. You were talking about when he played a dance of yours, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he mentioned my name for helping him like set up, and I felt like the biggest thing in the world. Like, and he did do that shit. Like he looked out for us. He goes to Villanova, and so there was definitely a shift in Kevin after. And it's funny because I thinking about his wonderful life. Like there was a shift after his sophomore year, right? So his freshman and sophomore year at Villanova.
Yeah,
Villanova, which he paved the way for us, man. Like he was at Villanova, and he was still that same high school guy. We were family dinners, like you remember all the guys from the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity were always over.
I remember us having that whole fraternity over, or at least the whole freshman class over
all the time. Remember Czech Shalva Chakotay was there, like all the time, and it was awesome. And I think that's when his drugs and alcohol really took off. And I could see it because after his sophomore year, he moved to Manayunk. And this is, if I may tell a quick tale, this is when he became known to us as Shady Chuck. But and for those listeners of this podcast, Happy Days, one of the great shows growing up, even before our era, but you've watched the reruns. In season 1, there was an older brother. There was Joni, Peter, Richie, who else? And there was, not the Fonz, there was Chuck. Chuck was the older brother, season 1. He wouldn't say anything. He'd come down, dribble the ball. Yep. And season 2, gone. Never mentioned Chuck Cunningham again. And that was Kevin. Like in season 1, he'd show up, he was gone, show up, he was gone, and then he was just gone. And we literally nicknamed him Shady Chuck. Like
Shady Chuck. Like
Shady Chuck.
He was I'd heard more about him. No, really. I mean, at that point,
sorry.
It was almost like stuff of like myth. You would hear about him from other people, and then Mom was really, like you talk about paving the way. She laid it out for us
phenomenally
at Villanova. they did everything. Our parents did everything for us to be quote unquote safe. You know, you can't really protect your kid from who you are, right? And our parents were
No.
people that were growing up and finding their way as parents, but they did everything they could. Man, we had carte blanche at Villanova. Kevin was a freshman there, and you could speak more of this to more of this, but there was like an encroachment almost on you guys and your social lives because of who mom was and because of, you know, guys and girls found relationships with mom, people that worked at the Conley Center, Villanova Student Union building, and then they would report back to mom about stuff that Kevin was doing.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing, like Kevin was, like once he got a little taste of freedom, right? He was still the first, again, couple of years, the Kevin guy, but he would just like, he just was on his own path and he would do whatever. I was more of a conformist, right? I worked at the Connolly Center where mom was. I hung out with all those people there. Like I went on trips with them. They're great people, but they were not Kevin's cup of tea, right? Kevin was cutting edge, rock star. This is like the birth of the rock star. Yeah, and mom would hear stuff, and I think she would deny it or not deal or whatever. But the weed, the booze, and the cocaine junior year, like it was on. Like it was on.
Yeah, and he was in one of the best bands in the area, let alone at Villanova, Rugby Road, and he was unceremoniously ejected from that band.
He was unceremoniously ejected from the band.
And I will say that was another thing that was like, so here's our brother going through this struggle. He's not asking anybody for help because that's not what we do. If you're a Sousa, I really believe about it. And Kevin is a great example. We were predisposed to this thing. It's literally a matter of time before like you're going to do something about it or it's going to kill you. And you were the first person to do something about it. He had taken a couple cracks at it, but then he did it after you. But when he's discovering this part of who he is, we're watching it and it was really playing out. I mean, you do say that the Chuck thing, he wasn't there, but I can remember he was, they didn't want him in Rugby Road anymore because he was just partying too much. Bottom line, everybody loved him, but he was partying too much. And I remember he was home at mom and dad's house. I remember that was like a whole drama played out. And that's got to be hard for a kid. Like I went through all my stuff like far away from home or at least far enough away. But like the Richmond football team wasn't walking into mom and dad's house and saying like, hey, we had to throw Pete out of this group because, but it happened to me, but it happened for Kevin really close to home.
Yeah, it was very much up close and personal. And I think, the information wasn't out there as much. I think parents at that point were more inclined to like believe what they wanted to, right? Like, I mean, look, I think it's a wonderful thing and a terrible thing. Like drugs and alcohol are talked about more, but they're also more prevalent, right? So, but as there wasn't, people weren't educating their kids and mom and dad, they knew there was things there, but they kind of turned their head, let's say, like, and I don't blame them for that. And, it started getting worse and worse. He got thrown out of the best band, and look, the whole time he would take me to these shows. Like I would go there as a sophomore, he's a senior and I go to Barleycorns with him, right? Like, he was like, I got to ride his coattails. But I also saw that he was getting out of control and, the idol I had on the pedestal definitely started to fall for me. Now, this is not his fault. I was starting my own path of addiction. And, look, I was probably a mirror of myself in a lot of ways, right? So I started over the next, 20 years, to have our relationship not be like that, where I idolized him and he could do no wrong. I started not to like him as a person, probably because I didn't like myself as a person, but I still loved him as a brother. Like we still loved each other. We still talked, but I really thought, he's out of control and I'm better than him, which was not the truth at all. Right. Like we were going down our own path, but
we had the classic brothers relationship in a sense that like, even there were point in times when we all weren't getting along, but there was like a real strong bond and love. And like, Kevin or you wouldn't let anything happen to me, like outside of, like that's my little,
yeah. It's like, look,
yeah,
he might
I felt
be
protected around Kevin. I
Yeah,
felt protected around you.
me too. Like he
Yeah.
might be an asshole, but he's ours.
Yeah.
Like you
100%.
don't cross that line. Like
Yeah.
without a question, like we were tight. I mean, there was a large fight at Smoky Joe's where Kevin paved the way for us, got me a job as a freshman, a bouncer there. He was a bouncer, then became a bartender, and it was like that. That was the greatest gift ever. I mean, that whole family, they reached out as soon as they heard about Kevin, and the messages and love from that family were so touching. Like those kind of deep relationships that he forged, and we got in a fight there, and somebody sucker punched Kevin, and you see your brother go down, and I went on the offensive, and we got in a little bit of trouble.
I remember. Yeah. It was like New Year's Eve, right?
It was New Year's Eve, and this is classic Shady Chuck style. We get in this brawl, and yeah, he started it. Then he got sucker punched. I came in and with a swift couple shots, and
Oh,
then
give me with a swift couple shots. Take it easy, Chuck Norris.
well, no,
Was
but
it a
look,
roundhouse? Did you hit him with a roundhouse?
yeah, but as the guy went down, Kevin kind of started getting his wits about him and started like a little extra salt, to the point where I'm like, dude, all right, like, and within a week, that freaking guy is in California, and next thing you know, I'm at the Radnor police station meeting with a detective about the incident. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like literally, Shady Chuck has relocated to the West Coast.
He graduates from Villanova. He goes to California. And I think,
Wreckage.
well, I think this speaks to his ability and his overall, Kevin with tools in his hand. I mean, it kind of had like almost like an engineer's mind in a sense where he could figure stuff out. And he was a guitar tech at the House of Blues, right? What did he do at the House of Blues? So you guys go out there. What I'm saying is the guy, his skills, he was able to just fall ass backwards into opportunities because he had unique abilities.
Well, I think he had an ability that we learned from our dad, right? Like, and that was you show up. Like, and when you move to Los Angeles, guess what? There ain't a lot of people showing up on a consistent basis, right? And then I think he had the knack, like he was really smart to learn things quickly, right? Like he would apply himself. So he started working at the House of Blues, and he was what's called a load in, load out. Like they start moving, band comes in at midnight, you bring the stuff in, then you bring it out. And that was part of the stage crew. And he went from there all the way through till he was the stage manager. And he worked with some amazing people out there. Like but that again was he became Glenn Fry's guitar tech. And these are all like,
how did he get the Glenn Fry job? Did he work with Glenn?
Lord, no, look, there's so much. And look, we're here to talk about like celebrating Kevin's life. Again, I'm going through my own addictions. I have moved to Los Angeles at this point. Like I follow Shady Chuck, right? Like, and Kevin is gets me a job at the House of Blues. And it's just craziness there, right? There's more scandal with Kevin with, he's dating this girl. She's sleeping with this guy. He's sleeping with this girl. And I'm watching this whole thing like, what the fuck? Like I'm again, like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it really is like, you got the best ticket in town.
Best ticket in town.
Yeah.
And I'm just flying under, like, here's the thing. Kevin, at that point, whatever fear or wherever his addictions came from, it came out in like, fight. I'm in your face, bigger than life. So he became like this, like, we always kid about, like Kevin, like a noise for Kevin is like, like that's like, he became that guy. And I would be able to sit back and like fly under the radar. I was the nice, polite Sousa. Meanwhile, I'm shoveling cocaine up my nose and drinking, like, but like, I was the good one. They called me the good brother after more shit went down there. Like it was unbelievable.
Well,
like,
how much hanging out did you and him do when you were out there? I mean, you lived out there, you work at the same place.
So when I got out there, I stayed with his buddy, still good buddy till he passed, and good friends with our sister-in-law, who we'll get to, Patty. Tad in Manhattan Beach. He came back here because his drug and alcohol problem had kind of hit a height, and came back to Philadelphia to get himself better right when I moved out there. So, he moves out to California. I go, leaves this wreckage of the Radnor police in Pennsylvania that I deal with. I move out to California, follow him, and chase my dreams of acting. I get to California, and he's gone. He leaves literally 5 days before I get there.
And I can put a timestamp. It's the fall of like 97.
That's it. And I get there, and he didn't leave, on a high note. So I get there, and I'm like, I have to interview at the House of Blues. I find it, like this is where the scandals everywhere. Everyone's like, and I'm like wide-eyed, like, what did I get myself into? Like it was just insanity. But then he came back, and I'll tell you what, that guy, he was sober, and he was started to work a program. And I was like, oh my God, he within like 2 months, he came back. He was a stage manager at the House of Blues, right? Because he had been like, he went and took a sabbatical. And I was like, oh my God, it's that guy from high school again. Like I saw that glimpse. I was like, holy shit. Like it's that guy. Like the dude I idolized was there. And that was like really a great 6 months. I'll never forget it. We were on the front porch of the House of Blues, and he's like, hey, I want you to know, which God bless him. He's like, I had a beer the other night. I'm going to be drinking again. And even I am now in my own addictions, right? And I still remember my heart fell. I just knew this wasn't going to go well. And it did not.
No, it did not, but he kept plowing forward.
Yeah.
With his career, he goes on tour with the Eagles. Just an amazing opportunity. Again, I can relate in a similar. You kind of keep finding these opportunities on your way down, and but eventually, like, that chicken's coming home to roost. I think they say, Mike.
I think look, we were taught to stand up straight, show up on time, and look the part, right? So there was a certain time in all of our lives, and probably a lot of people similar to us, where you get in the door because you look the part and you show up, early on consistently, and you learn maybe how to do that trade, and then your addictions come in, and it's chaos, right? And that was him at the House of Blues, and that was him with the Eagles, and then that was him after that. Like, he got these opportunities, and he earned them in terms of showing up, and then blew them up. And look, we're not telling anything that Kevin wouldn't care if we shared right now. And we're not getting, this is a general part of his story, right? Like, and it's, he introduced me to Glenn Fry. I was working security at the foundation room at the House of Blues. And just like that article said, like he literally, or, he walks in and says, the only good thing about the House of Blues must be the two Sousa brothers. And I was like, holy shit, this is Glenn Fry. Like, and he was great. And it's like everything. Kevin would be like, hey, I'm touring with Glenn Fry and the Eagles. And I was like, okay, right, whatever. Like, did I believe it or not? And then, 3 months later is Glenn Fry, and Glenn loved him. You could tell just like spending time with him. Like, I'm like, holy shit. Like, he's really in with Glenn Fry.
He would say, this is Kevin Sousa. He went to Villanova. Now he tunes my guitars. He would say that every night at shows when Kevin would come out and switch guitars. And then, in 2003, this was like a turning point in Kevin's life. And I remember it because I was sober at the time. It was 2002. It's the fall of 2002. Kevin comes home for Thanksgiving. I'm home because at this point I'm like homebound. I'm trying to like get my life together. You're living in Atlanta. You're with Lily's mother at the time, and Kevin comes home, and we went down to see the Eagles and the Rams at the Vet.
Oh Jesus!
Kevin was really in a good mood. He'd met this girl. He showed us. I forget how he showed us a picture of his wife to be Patty. I swear I think it was like a picture. I mean, it was 2002.
I do, yeah. I kind of recall that. But
maybe it was on the phone. They had met kind of over the summer, but now it was getting kind of serious. And there comes Patty Fellers, ultimately
Yes.
to be Kevin's wife, Patty. She is now on the scene, and on the scene forever.
Forever. And look, I think that you don't get sober until you're ready, and I also think that certain people play a role in your life in terms of you realizing that the stakes are high enough that you should get sober, right? Some are sicker than others, but I think at some point when you realize I'm going to lose a Patty who was just a wonderful, wonderful person, wife, and so like smart, you finally start to get your act together, right? And it didn't happen overnight. It was a journey, but I think Patty is not the reason he's sober, but it was something that helped him, that he needed to get sober for himself, but also he was going to lose that thing, like it was going to go away. And I think that was a motivating factor for it, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how you get in the rooms. I always say that I don't care how you get in there, right? At some point, you're going to figure out that it's your fucking fault you're there, and you got to start working on yourself. Like it don't matter how you get in.
My experience with that is very similar. Like I agree. I believe like certain things, whatever, push you towards sobriety. Patty being like a seismic shift for him. But I also can point back to that time. He started to really lighten as an individual. Like a light came on. He was still drinking and he was still using. At this point in time, from what to my knowledge, there was a lot more marijuana on the scene than harder drugs, but the harder drugs were still certainly around. But they kind of, I just remember going out to see him and Patty in like 2004, and it was like it was a wonderful scene. We were all drinking a little bit. There was a lot of pot. Like they were obviously in love. I can remember the fall of 2004,
Totally.
and it was just like, wow, these guys, these two have it going on. And I remember Kevin was like, I'm going to propose to her. And I was like, I remember
Is that what he said?
This is such a great,
hey,
he's like, he tells me this like because he has to, because I'm out there and he has a ring. It's like he was confiding to me. He's like, oh yeah, dude, look at this, or at least I felt like he had to tell me. He was probably being a great big brother. He was like, look at this, I'm gonna propose to her. And I remember I go, what do you think she's gonna say? And he goes, dude, I wouldn't ask her if I didn't know what she was gonna say. Gonna say, she's gonna say yes. I was like,
what are you, a moron?
Yeah. But I remember I was out there and
yeah.
I had stopped drinking, but then I had started to drink again. And I had an episode where I got really drunk around Mom, and it was like got back to him.
Oh god. For a different podcast.
I was living in Colorado.
Oh Jesus.
And yeah, I mean we can't even, I really don't feel comfortable getting into that. But like,
me neither.
But I got hammered and like was a big mess, and Mom had to do it. And of course she told Mike and she told Kevin, and
you won't believe it.
So Kevin was like a month later, and I'm one of those guys, right, who's like, I'm binging now, but eventually I'm going to get back to where I was before, because there's a reason why I had stopped. But Kevin, I remember, was like, and you put people, if you're like me, if you're an addict, especially with two big brothers like you guys, you put people in uncomfortable positions. Like, I'm out in California, we're having fun, we're drinking, and he's just kind of like, dude, you got to get your shit together. You know what I mean? He's like,
yeah.
Mom calls me and tells me about this. He's like, you got to get it together. But I could tell, and this was what I think would happen to him later on with patients he was seeing as he was getting his degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was telling me this, and he knew in his own heart, like, how can I tell this dude this when I'm still, I know it wasn't as profound as the message once became eventually when he stopped drinking and I still was drinking.
Yeah.
And
I think that like that time period, all three of us were realizing we had a problem, and on our own, we were trying to figure it out. Right. I mean, it was the beginning of our journey, towards sobriety. Right. And different, like for him, I think you saw at times a lighter Kevin, because he would try and just smoke weed because of Patty. Like he wanted to get it, like, it was under wraps a little bit.
We're
but
crazy.
eventually
Alcoholics, addicts are crazy, right? Any which way. How can we get this potion to work? Like, let's play chemist. Just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it's like, why can't you just stop? Like the after school special dad, it's not that simple.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not. And he really, you know, when he got sober, I mean, what do you want to talk about? Like, where are you at in the timeline now? Because we could talk about him for 7 hours. I don't
Well,
want to
no,
cut it.
I want to touch on one thing, and then we'll get to when he got sober. So I'm going to get to when he got married. So he got
Oh,
married. He got married, and it was like a beautiful thing, right? Like, from honestly, Mike, and I have my own issues. It was when I'm in and
oh
out.
yeah,
But this time I'm living in Charlotte. We go to the wedding. The wedding was great. Um, and it seems like, man, this guy's got it going on.
totally.
Got this wife. Patty always, not only, I mean, she would tell you emotionally, maybe not always, tied up in a bow tie, but always like had her shit together, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
clearly.
and I think that like that was a reflection of, here's a guy who he aced the hardest decision of your life, with Patty.
Yeah,
And like he had this thing. So for me, I guess I thought everything was going to be fine, but there was still a couple
yeah,
chapters to be written before he would get to this end, this great ending of the story.
yeah. Um, the wedding was 5 of the best days of my life. I remember that. Like it was, and maybe because I used to watch like all those sitcoms and like the Facts of Life would go to London and it'd be like, oh, that's so cool. Like it was all of our people out there in Santa Monica and Pepperdine. It was just amazing. Yeah, I mean that was a really, really wonderful time.
And you think now, Mike, by the way, just to jump in, you get older, right? People, you lose people. Like everybody was healthy and
Yeah,
alive and there for that wedding. People have since passed on. Obviously, that's why we're here today.
yeah.
People have moved on, and
Oh,
that is one of those times you look back at that wedding. Just what a God had his hands all over that, because
he did. I
you
mean,
know
and look, you could also there are layers to everything, right? Like, you had your thing, I had my thing, we were all battling, but it came together for a pretty special time. And I also got to notice the makings of that family and the culture in Southern California, South Base, specifically. Now, those pieces changed out a lot because they were lunatics at that point. I remember the one dude asleep underneath the table.
yeah,
Mom's
yeah.
like, "Who's the guy with the crazy hair?"
Like
Like,
Andy
I'm like,
Dick.
he's
It is
unconscious.
Andy Dick. No, it wasn't Andy.
And
Dick.
but
Right.
that was all, like, to see that family and you're like, wow, this, because I was there for 2 years. I moved back home. I had my friends in Hollywood, but this is a different thing. Like the relationships that Patty and Kevin started to build, you saw it there. And that was something that, to this day, is a theme, or, it's a line all the way through. Like those special people out there, you got to look, but they're there.
Now, as he would tell us, and I mentioned, he's talking to he decides to become a therapist, right? Or decides, again, I don't have all the details, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's a foggy timeline, but I believe he wanted to. I think he got sober before, and then as soon as he got sober, like this is in typical Kevin Sousa style, right?
Yeah.
He gets sober, he quits smoking, he then does the Catalina. What's it called? Come on,
Catalina Classic.
Catalina Classic, which is paddleboarding. Look, if you've never done it, I never had, like, you're gonna think whatever, but it is one of the most grueling things you could do. So he trains for this Catalina Classic, and he goes back to school to get advanced degrees to be able to become a certified
Because he'd had
therapist.
experience teaching at Miracosta High School,
Yeah, he taught there.
and being an assistant surf coach there. And he was an assistant coach at Overbrook
Yeah.
Golf Club or Country Club, like with the swim team. He was some of these kids. Kate Moran's sister,
Oh, loved them.
Siobhan, was saying how, Kevin made me. This is when she was a very little kid. He saw something in me I didn't see in myself, and he gave me the confidence as a swimmer, right, as a kid, and that enabled me to come out of my shell as a person because Kevin believed in me in the pool. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, it's a
there's
lot of the things.
millions, not
A
millions,
lot of
a
the
lot of
things you're
stories like
seeing.
that.
Oh, I'm talking over you. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
A lot of the things with at Miracosta that we're just seeing posted, and they're heartfelt, like the impact he had, right? I mean, he really did, because he really did care, like he cared. And we're telling all the fun stuff, the create of fun, crazy antics, but he still made his impact along the way, like
Oh my
without
God.
question. Like he definitely affected people's lives in a very positive way. But we got to see over these last 12 years, like that developing that person that just, was unbelievable.
Now, I wanted to ask Patty this, but I feel like this is down the line. I don't think anybody's like super ready. I just didn't want to burden her with like, hey, like let me get some information about this, or I would like you to join us. And I want to also talk with like Sully, somebody out in the South Bay, about Kevin and Kevin's sobriety. But as you can remember, as you recall, when what you were sober at the time, when
Mm-hmm.
did you get the phone call or the official heads up from Kevin or Kevin's camp? Like, hey, he's stopped drinking, like for real.
I really can't remember exactly. I think because he had been trying, he had been sober for like 3 or 4 months, and then so I think it was kind of like a quieter thing. At this point, I'm back here. I got Lily, right, and so I think it was kind of a quieter thing. There was a couple of incidents that were, if you remember, health, like he had partied a lot and had to go to the hospital for some, what do they call it these days, exhaustion, quote
Yeah.
unquote, like so it
Well,
was coming to a
he
head.
was working and playing almost every night.
Yeah,
Uh,
playing locally there,
yeah.
like just
Like
creating
dad.
his name.
I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, he was playing so much and
So much.
Frank, he just, of course, he was exhausted. It's like not exactly
No, I think there's a little more
partying.
to it.
Yeah,
Every Thursday and Friday. Oh,
yeah.
my
So he basically gets himself to that gift of desperation, and as it was told to me, he has a major moment, and then he says to Patty, "I'm going to stop drinking on this day,"
yeah.
and he basically circles a day on the calendar, does his thing, and then that day he stopped and never. It was October of 2009 or 10.
Uh, let's go with 9. I mean,
No, I think it's 10.
okay.
Yeah.
Here we are with math. The math, we got to another math portion. This is
No,
not our.
I think it's 2010. I think so.
Yeah. So I think for me, right, like, when you're sober, I was still working an earlier. Well, I'm like 4 years sober, I guess. I've seen him in and out. I've offered my support in any way possible, but you don't start making notes until you're like, oh wow, he's like, 60 days. He's really working it, right? And so I think that it was when he got like a year and he was working on his master's degree, and he had to do some huge, he did some, I forget what it was, like it was
Uh,
beautiful.
Come on,
What's
man.
it? I know we're
What's
gonna
that
lose.
called? It's like your dissertation.
Yes, thank you. Good Lord.
So I was in. So let me tell you about the dissertation. So by the time the dissertation comes around, Kevin, although light years beyond me in many respects, was really just about 18 months more than me in sobriety after after I finally got it. And I can remember I was in the halfway house that I lived in, that Lily came and visited your daughter. We went to Chili's. I remember I was in that bed, and Kevin wouldn't talk to me. Now, when I got sober, I called him from rehab, and I was, oh, this is my life is changing. He's like, dude, call me when you get 90 days,
There you go.
which was perfect. It was honestly, it was, at the time I hated it, but again, it was one of those things I needed. So he sent me a draft of the dissertation, and it was
Yeah.
dedicated to me.
Yeah.
I've never told anybody that, because honestly, at the time, I felt like it was almost too heavy for me. I couldn't process it. I was like, I know how big of a deal this is to him. The fact that he's dedicated this to me is like more than I can, I'm still like a kid. I probably
So
still,
unexpected, right? Like you're like,
yeah.
what the fuck? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, but he started to operate in that mode,
yes.
thinking of others, doing things for others. His life totally started to change. I remember he came home for Christmas, um, and he was like not any of the bizarre ones. He was like 90 days, I think, around 2010.
Uh-huh.
And the one thing I noticed was like he and Patty had shifted the way that they were living.
Yeah.
They had become very humble. They were saving money. They were
Mhm.
open about saving money. He wasn't playing the big shot anymore, which he would revert back to that role.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But they had a plan.
yeah.
And look, I think no matter what, like Kevin really, like, she worked hard while he was going back to school, right? She supported him through that process. And she had a plan financially of how they could get places. I mean, that was a wonderful thing. And he was like, okay, like at that point, um, yeah, but look, he still was a big brother to us. Like, and that's like you said, get 90, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Oh,
I mean, some of the things that have flashed in my brain, and we've talked about, like, of him being that big brother to us while he was sober. Like, nothing ever changed between us, really. Like, except for we got closer and closer and closer. Um, Point being, one of my favorite shows ever on HBO, Entourage.
oh gosh.
What what was it? You who asked him that question? Do you remember who?
We were on vacation in Long Island, and like and I said, "You guys watching the show Entourage?" Charlie Cerrusi was there, Kevin's best friend, and Kevin says, "Dude, I don't need to watch it. I lived it." Well, now this is before he was sober. This is like 2007, 2008, and everybody, the record skipped and the ball
Like, I'm sorry, what?
commenced. I mean, we were like, "Excuse," and you and Charlie more so. I could never
This
get him in line. Yeah.
this is the bravado of Kevin. Like, that's it. And he believed it. And that's the shit he would tell the people out in the South Bay in Hollywood. And they'd be like, oh, wow. I mean, his nickname was rock and roll out there. We're like,
Legit.
dude, he'd come home. We're like, dude, are you like, no, like you didn't live Entourage. Like, no, like he told you one time, another famous quote, I've been in more fights than days you've been alive. Now play that back, but that's exactly what he said.
But the beauty of that is that he even in, I guess there was a point in time where we were all young and
He
maybe
was sober then, man.
what the days you were alive, yes, the days you were yes, but not the Entourage. But he could take a little ribbing and he could always
uh
he projected this for at least for me. I was scared of him, right? But he would
oh,
soften. I know, but he would soften if you stood up to him.
oh, because we would call him on the carpet, like,
Yeah.
and that was the thing that was so great. Would be like, dude, you that's not true. Like, we were raised with you, and I certainly didn't, turn the corner of Meadowwood and Brownie and see you, like, on leaning on the signpost with a cigarette, like looking to kick someone's ass, bro. Like, no, the only fight I can remember you were in, I was with you, and I think you left me there and went to California. Like, just
Yeah, he was like that though. He had the ability to kind of take a beat and laugh at himself.
yeah.
When he started to get sober, and your relationship with him started to change, what
Mm-hmm.
were some of the things you started to notice? Because he became vulnerable, and for me, it was the first time I ever saw him vulnerable in his life
Yeah.
to us. What did you? And there's an immortality in becoming vulnerable, especially I think if you're somebody like Kevin.
The thing was living so far away, and you're hearing about these things he's doing, right? And it was hard to, like, really wrap your brain around them when I'm back here with starting a family, like, um I'm getting married to Tara, and it just, like, it it took a couple years to really see that he was really on this path, and to see him change, right? Because frankly, I probably still had some, even though I'm sober, what, 6 years, and I still, like, that, that guy had fallen for me a little bit, and I didn't know if he was really gonna make this happen. I don't know the moment, but, like, when I went out to visit him, he took me to a bunch of AA meetings, and I met all his crew out there, and I was like, that's the moment, like going to the clubhouse down by his house, and he
Were
was
you
so,
surprised at how dialed in he was?
yes, and not just that, and this is where I get, like, look, this is, we're having fun. This is a tremendous loss. Like, and when I think about him bringing us down there to the clubhouse, he's so proud to introduce us to everybody. Like, so proud. Like, it was, like, awesome. I mean, that was the stuff. Like, he was just so proud to show his brothers off,
Three of us
together, and,
going to
like,
that Alano club.
Alan, yeah, like that, it
Alano,
was just
Alano. I always get it wrong. He'd be like, "Dude, it's Alano."
like,
I would
whatever.
always get it wrong. But we would go to these meetings, and by the way, some of the women were beautiful, you know, and they're like, oh my gosh, they're Kevin's, you're the three sober brothers. I remember one time you guys stayed in bed and I went by myself one
Not
morning.
with any of the women. Whoa, whoa.
No, I went to the meeting, but I was in all my glory talking to some of these, you know, beautiful women about my brother and stuff like that.
Typical.
They were interested in us, you know. And you're right. I've forgotten about that, Mike. Like, you know, you mentioned your time going with him, but like, yeah, going out there and going to meetings with him, and he was
Oh,
like he would break my balls wide open. I mean, he would always get your shit together, this and that, you know. I disagree with this, and I would hate it, but like, and it was almost to the point where I was shocked with the pride he spoke of us, you know, and I would see it, and it was almost to the point where it was I'm not like it was almost too intimate for me, like oh my
yeah.
gosh, like this feels I can't believe this.
Yeah, I agree. It was my program at that point, was good, but not like that. And I was like, damn, okay. And to your question earlier, seeing him through my children's eyes was really, really when I'm like, wow, like the relationship that he developed with Lily, my oldest, and with Callie, you know, like it was just amazing. And I know Kate, always looked at him, my stepson, like, this guy's crazy. But when he was in town, like Kevin would like have a blast with him. Like we were
Yeah.
at the Hamptons, he'd like throw them all around the pool. We'd do races, and Kevin would be like, let's go. Like, he knew that like there was some struggle with Cade in our family, just because, like I came in and busted up Cade's world. I get it, right? But like Kevin didn't care. He was gonna come in and like have everyone have fun, right?
And
And
he
this is
also
like
at that
so
point in time started to develop a greater understanding for relationships like that, right?
yes,
Through his
yes,
job and through his work, so he could just activate that by being there and take
yes.
certain loving actions, you know, and understanding.
And watching him with those guys was like that was not like it was my relationship with him at that point just started to really develop. You know, it got to a place where I never thought it could, and yours was just like mine, like how close we got, how much I admired him. Watching him, like it's so funny because kids are shy, right? And he would come home and he'd be like, dude, what time is Lily done school on Thursday? I'm like, dude, she's got like lacrosse or something. Like, he's like, I'm coming to get her. I'm like, bro, you can't just show up at a school and grab a kid, right?
Yeah, 2021, yeah.
There's protocol, man. Like,
Yeah.
especially like at this point, he's got the long hair and everything. I'm like, we got like, so, and Lily's kind of like, she was probably like 7 or 8 or not. Like, this is,
Okay, okay.
yeah, like she's like, I'm like, hey, Uncle Kevin's gonna pick you up. And she's like, well, I have a friend thing. And I'm like, look, just go, like, that's when their relationship started to develop to the point where and then like, on his trips home, I'd be like, hey, Lily, Uncle Kevin's coming to pick you up. She's like, yes, like,
Well, and then what about? I mean, just flash forward. We'll go to something really recent. Like
uh,
she's going to San Diego State, and
yeah,
Lily's like can retreat into her own like world,
yeah,
and so it's kind of like, hey, like Lily's just like if I text Lily, I have very low expectations on her text, right? And if I get one, it's great. If I don't expect
yeah.
it. But for Kevin, like now she's living in San Diego, going to school there, and Kevin, like you're like, hey, just kind of take me,
Well, can I just
yeah,
don't, you can't discard the fact that she went to San Diego State because Kevin and Patty are out there. And one of the things, because her mom and I aren't together, I would bring her out every year to visit them.
yeah.
She fell in love with the West Coast, fell in love with California, fell in love with Patty and Kevin. And it was like a major factor in her going to San Diego State. Like Uncle Kevin's right there, Aunt Patty's right there.
Yeah. And then he comes through because he's like, hey, I'm in San Diego. Come on, I'm going to pick you up. We're going to go to the, Jimmy Miller Foundation surf or whatever. It's like, what?
As a parent, to see your child have a relationship with your brother or an uncle and you're not involved, like that's the moment you're like, oh shit, this is real. Like, him and Patty would go down and pick her up a couple times, just him. He's like, I'm coming down. And he would brought her to do charity work. He comes down on a Friday, takes her to dinner on a shopping
working with
spree.
veterans, right? With the
Yeah,
charity.
yeah. Well, and they go on the shopping spree. At that point, he's smart. He's gonna, he's gonna take away all objections that could have come. He's like, let's go
Yeah.
dinner, shopping, whatever you want. Like, then they go shopping, and the next morning he picks her up at 7 to go to work with wounded warriors on the beach with this brilliant progressive therapy, surf therapy for veterans, like, and for special needs children. Like, this is when you start seeing the other side of Kevin. He's not that guy like, dude, we're going shopping. This is the authenticity that is him, like the giving part that you're seeing so much of if you're close to him these days, like the love he gave back. Like, this, it all dovetails, from Lily, me seeing it through those eyes, to this, like, to where we are now. Like, it just amazing.
It's a fabulous way to kind of wrap it all together from your eyes as a kid, and now through your kid's eyes, and through, the execution he was able to have through the Keep Hermosa Hermosa. They're going to frack in the South Bay, and I think 2012, and he starts a campaign that is successful in stopping the fracking and keeping big oil, as he would say, out of Hermosa, but also, he starts a movement, and he and Patty becomes a celebrity. And as Patty would tell you, it wasn't one of her favorite parts about being married to him. I mean,
No.
they would be at dinner somewhere in Hermosa, and somebody that was a part of the cause on either side, or on either side of this whole thing, would want to sit down with them and talk, to the point where they actually moved for a while.
Yeah.
They rented their place in Hermosa, and rented
San Clemente.
in San Clemente for a while. And, it just, the more I find out, what are you looking at? The more I find out, the more Mike just fakes nodding off. The more I find out, I knew about this stuff, but I didn't know about this stuff. I mean, go ahead.
You couldn't put it more clearly than that. Like, because also he would tell us about it. He'd also tell us he's not telling anybody else about what he's doing but us, right? Because he's the big brother, in the way he's telling us. That sometimes it's hard to hear, when he's like, dude, I'm working at this battered woman's shelter, which he did, Miriam's house. Such great work. We're like, what, but you just don't hear it when someone's telling it to you, like, dude, I got to go to Miriam's and help. We're like, all right, whatever, dude.
Yeah, whatever.
Like,
he calls you. He's like, I'm on my way over to Miriam's house.
Like, who the fuck's Miriam?
Yeah.
Like,
but these are women. I think women that have children that are struggling with addiction,
yes,
through
like
trauma, like something along those lines.
And the Jimmy Miller Foundation, he's on the board there, like the impact. But like, what's this Jimmy Miller thing? Like, and like, he would tell us.
By the way, he's still going to meetings, raising his hand and talking to other alcoholics, and he became so popular and so involved because he had so many clients in the Hermosa area that, as it was told to us by Sully, he couldn't really go to meetings in Hermosa anymore.
Yeah,
it was almost like, a little bit of conflict there, because conflict of interest, I guess you would say, because his clients would be there. So he would go to that meeting in Roxbury meeting that everybody talks about.
It's, look, I got, like, our connection with him over the last, what's the number, 8 to 10 years? I don't know.
I would say 8 years. It's been like, for me, it's just been like on fire,
the Super Bowls, the sobriety, him being part of our Zoom family, like with meetings. Like, it's been,
for me, there was a channel that opened more for him to join you in providing feedback on my life, and as to where things were going, and to give me honest, direct counsel, which led to, saving my life, even in sobriety.
I mean,
opening all kinds of, like, the work he did for us, right? So why wouldn't, of course, he be doing that for everyone else? If he impacted us like that, the care he had for others, it's very clear now more than ever that as to what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, we with Dad dying, Alzheimer's, going into the home, like, to work through that as brothers on this level, that, look, it's, to me, it transcends, like, the normal, like, never an argument, like, everyone, like, we just communicated, we had a plan. Mom has a stroke, 7 months ago. He comes home, we decide as a team that you've got your stuff at work that's kicking ass, stay there. we'll need you back here in a month when I'm having my surgeries for my neck, which I had. Like, and you're like, okay, I'll do it. I don't have to be the hero right now. These guys are there. I go, you come. Like the decisions that we made as adults in sobriety, to me, it was just unbelievable. And we always noted it. We never took it for granted.
Well, and the fact that we were able, like, I don't make decisions like that on my own. So I needed you guys and the program to come to those decisions. And I think probably the same could be said for you guys, right? Like it was greater than us, like our ability to work
Totally.
as a cohesive unit. Because there was a couple times, I remember one time we were out in California, and it was when stuff was getting really tough on you with dad and mom, because dad is now,
Oh yeah.
he's spiraling. And I remember we were outside Coffee Man, or is that what it's called?
I
Burrito?
remember exactly where we were. I don't remember the name.
Yeah, I think it's Coffee Bro or something. Remember we went there with Kevin all the time. And you
All
get
right, what are you gonna get a free cup of coffee when you go next time? Like, is he fucking listening?
like a Java Man.
That's it. Okay,
Yeah.
Java Man.
So we're outside Java Man, and he is like kind of telling you how it's going to be, and you're just like, you're like, no. I was like, and it was kind of like those were very helpful conversations.
Well, he received it.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
our relationship had gotten to the point where I could say, look, dude, it's not going to work. Like, here's where we are. And he would hear it. And that's somebody who had transformed who they were through a lot of work, you know? And I just like, he was just like this kind, loving, amazing guy. You know, that this is what sobriety does. Working a program, like you just give back, you're available. And some of the stuff that all the stuff that's out there right now, you know, the people's lives he touched, the impact Hermosa Beach, like, yeah, we knew it, but we didn't know it. And I'm like, God, man, like I almost feel like I didn't know him to this level, but I'm like, it's just amazing. And somebody said the other day, which is a typical thing, boy, you almost wish they were alive to see all this stuff so they could know how great they were. I'm like,
Okay, he's good.
you got that story. Like, you know,
No,
he's
I say this is no. So Kevin and I had gotten to have like deeper conversations, and I was, when Kevin and I would talk, and Mike, I discussed this with you the other day. Like, it wasn't like there wasn't so much of an exchange as there was. Like, he wasn't coming to me for advice. We started as we got older, and he started to kind of be curious about me and my career. There was definitely more conversations, but it was a lot of times me seeking his advice and just asking him questions, because I really did realize that I got to tap into this route. This is an incredible resource here.
yeah.
And I remember I was asking him, because I got all my insecurities and stuff, and I was talking about women, and I was like, I was like, I know how in love you and Patty are, and you've been married for so long, and we were out in Terranea. I'm like, it's just so obvious you guys are thriving. I said, but along a 20-year relationship or 18 years, you've never strayed or thought about like straying? Like, isn't marriage hard? He's like, dude, I don't need anybody else to tell me that I'm the man. I know I'm the man. He's like, guys have affairs because they're insecure. And he kind of like went on this rant, which was one part Kevin and another part totally right.
Oh.
It was just kind of like, dude, I don't need that bullshit. I have a wife. I'm in love with her. I've worked on myself enough to, yeah, I'm not perfect, but I know what this whole thing is about. And
which is
great,
because the version you tell is big brother to a little brother, right? He would have that same conversation with somebody else, but it would be, delivered in a like, look, I don't need like this program, and I have fulfilled myself, and I'm comfortable in my own skin, so I don't that temptation isn't even there for me, and I love my wife so much. But the way he tells it to you and me, it's the best.
Well, and dude, an hour or 25 minutes later, he told me I was at CVS. I was like, you knew I had a bad back and stuff. And the Coke Zero. And I got 12 pack. And after I leaned down to get it with my bad back, he's like, dude, buy 2, get 1 free. Grab 3. I go to grab.
He's standing there.
I pop my back as he's watching me. And for the rest of the weekend, I literally couldn't walk. It was the worst back trouble I ever had in my entire life. So this guy does, the Keep Hermosa. he is a therapist, a very successful therapist, to the point, by the way, and I want to celebrate this because the similar thing, and I'll let you out of here in a little bit, Mike.
I'm good. Let's
A
keep
similar
going.
thing happened with a similar thing happened with you and your sobriety. You have Lily with Kim. You and Kim are at odds, right? Around your addiction. You get
Yes.
sober. Kim now is one of your best friends. You are the
Mm-hmm.
godfather to her and Evans, one of their children.
Mm-hmm.
I would say you're the rock in that entire family tree, right? That extends to Kim and Evan. It's amazing what sobriety did to that relationship. With him and Patty, I'd say the same thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
would say also there was a point in time where Patty was doing the heavy lifting financially,
Totally.
right? I mean, and then there became a point where Patty was stuck in this job that was not her favorite, as she would tell you. And he convinced her to believe in herself that one, she could walk away from the job and be okay as a person. And two, he's got it under control. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Business flourished and she flourished and their relationship flourished. That stuff is not, it's just not an accident. You know what I mean? That's a guy who is working like
Yeah.
within the sunlight of the spirit.
And dude, the their relationship, it just, we would watch them work together it was special, like they were committed to each other, still are, it was special. I mean, I can't say, like, we were so fortunate to spend so much time with them at Terranea, at a resort they got for us. They took us to the Chili Peppers concert last year, like for my birthday.
Kevin's like, hey, come on out. Like for me, luckily I just gotten out of a bad relationship, so I was back on the roster.
Which one?
So I was back on the roster, but he was like, hey, come on out here. This is going to be the best. And it was, I mean, I think about a year ago,
Oh,
around now was when he called me and was like, hey, you got to come out for this. It's going to be all, and it was incredible. And by the way, all this is going on the year before that. He has us out there and he shows us, he talked to us about it, but we actually went to the space, right?
oh.
From some music company, which he and Patty and a few others were behind. He ended up owning it. He worked out of there, wrote music out of there. It became a creative space for people in the Hermosa. And he didn't know this at the time, but to come together, streaming performances during COVID, we listened to, and I'll say this, the song A Perfect Wave, when I was living in a halfway house, and it was Kevin, I would listen to it all the time. It really spoke to me then. This is over 10 years ago. And he had us. So I thought that was my favorite piece of music for him. And then he sits us down, you, Lily. I don't know if Patty came with us because she'd probably heard it 1,000 times.
No, it was me, you, Lily, Shag.
Shaggy, yeah. We're in the and who else? That was it, right? I think
That was it.
Yeah. And we listened to his whole album, which still, by the way, folks, there's still more music coming.
I mean, we're always going to be honest here. Like, we were kind of having an aside on the way down there. Like, what do we do if this sucks? Like, we knew it wouldn't, kind of, but like, because
you guys were wheeling me down in a chair because he just my back was fucked up.
We're like, all right, dude, like, if like we're two in and we're bored, like, can we go like, hey man, all right, this is like, we got like, how do you handle that, right? We're like, God, please be good. This has potential to be disastrous. If it's bad music, there's three of us there, like, and we just sat there. I was in awe.
Yeah.
Like, the music touched. I mean, I had tears in my eyes a couple times.
Yes.
Like, it was amazing.
Inspired. The album is inspired. And it's like there's a divine situation going on there. And he left us that music. And a lot of it still has yet to be released. I mean, this is total irony, but we're sitting here talking about Kevin, and that's the music that leads into this podcast because Kevin was a big part of, if you've listened to this and you feel like this has ever helped you at all, you're just one of the many thousands of people that he's touched through moving somebody in sobriety. And I was like, should I do this? He's like, do it, dude. Who cares? Like, he's like, just stay true to yourself and the tenets and the, and recovery, and it'll go the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I don't know. It's a huge, like, this has been great talking about, like the memories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
was this
you're gonna have to cut.
Do you mean I have to go somewhere?
Me?
Yeah, this has been great. Are we done?
Oh, I'm good. No.
I got a couple more questions for you.
You're gonna have to cut this thing up. I'm available for whatever. Like, Yeah,
Okay.
but
How
I'm in
was
no rush, honestly.
all right, well, I got shit to do. Um,
Really? Like
how
what?
was I have 1:30.
Yeah.
How was he as a football player?
Uh, he was, I mean, he was fast. Like you said, he wasn't the fastest, but like he was always where he should be.
He
Like,
was a starting cornerback
yeah.
at Archbishop Carroll, Philadelphia Catholic League,
Mm-hmm.
which I think speaks volumes to his just know-how um, as a player.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he was really good. As a matter of fact, I think like he got a late start because mom was always protecting us, wouldn't let us play football. He didn't play until like seventh grade, I think, so a little late. And then going to high school, like he was still developing and learning. I like we also played where the you only were allowed to play on one side of the ball. Like I think he could have done a lot more. I mean, who doesn't? But like
Yeah.
he was good. I mean, he maybe blew a play here and there, right? Like
What about so Kevin is they're playing Carroll's playing Newman at this point in time.
Newman,
You're a sophomore, right?
yes,
Kevin's a senior. So, so you're there.
I'm there, and yeah. Oh man, yeah, this
South
is
Philly, place is like a dust bowl.
Dust Bowl,
Kevin and his
and
team, they're trying to salt away a victory, right? And Newman has the ball. You know what happens?
they go
Carroll's up by
deep.
its score, let's say.
Yeah, they go deep. Like there's literally 30 seconds left, or maybe a minute, whatever. And Kevin like lost his footing, stumbled, like he got beat, and they lost the game. And this speaks to like it was tough. I mean, I remember he was like beat up. He was beat up, but like you know he kept things in perspective somehow. Like that would have like destroyed me, I think. And of course, then I have a smart aleck comment.
A couple days later,
Yeah, maybe like a week later, he was literally like stretching his neck around, and we're at dinner, and he's like, my neck is really bothering me. And of course, I say, yeah, probably from watching the ball fly over you from the Newman game, right? And look, I said things lots of times, half expecting to get attacked, right? Like, but he just laughed it off, and I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. Like he really didn't take himself too seriously the whole time.
and
But
that's
that was
yeah,
him.
I 100% agree, and it was like it was nice to finally discover that like if you were able to, I mean, you had that number the whole time. I just recently kind of you could mess with him a little bit. He was very very good at laughing at himself as
He
seriously
so good.
as he took himself. What did you think about? Do you remember the band he was in? Was that Final Cut with Clark Burke when they were
No,
playing?
no. So I don't think there was a name for that
It
band.
was
It
the
was like,
16th birthday for Clark. I remember
yeah,
we.
it was kind of, it was like Joe Utz, like
Oh,
Luke,
Tower Road.
Tower Road. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tower Road. They played at Conestoga Swim Club, Clarksburg. Those were like magic days. So fun. Mike Riley, who's a pilot now, like would cut like they, it was just great, man. There were a bunch of beat. Joe Utz played drums until thank God Luke Orlando came in, who actually could handle the sticks. Like, oh my God, that was the first band, Tower Road. It was awesome.
and that also opened up Kevin's social life because he now. I mean, I got a message from Bart Smith's brother, Rich, and Rich was like, "Dude, your brother was like Ferris Bueller, basically. He literally was like, he was, and also, but you throw in, he was a football player, he was a musician,
Yeah,
ladies loved him, he was kind of an outlaw, and there was,
totally.
yeah, there was like a legend around Kevin, even in high school.
Yes.
And I was telling this to Murph, I was like, when you talk about Kevin being a football player, all I was a football player, and I liked girls, and I was a drunk, in high school. Really, I mean, that was my identity, right? Like as I chose to forge it. Kevin was not one thing. I mean,
No.
when he was a football player when he was at practice. He was a musician when he was at practice playing in the band. I mean, he had so many different places he went to discover that fulfillment, I guess.
Yeah. And you just look, I don't know what it was, man. Like you were not going to put him in a box, and you were not going to tell him how to live his life. And that can be dangerous. Like if he had stayed down the drugs and alcohol path, like that, his life would have ended. But he gets sober, and he has that same moxie, right? And he's going to live his life. Like, think about it. This guy came from a conservative family on the East Coast, right? That with a you know, a very strict father, um, moves to California, grows his hair long, knows that his dad is probably like rolling his eyes at him, but he's like, I don't care. And, you know, look at the life he lived. Like, like he did it how he wanted to, but he did it ultimately, you know, with principles and integrity. Like, it doesn't matter if you have long hair and a beard and live on the beach. Like, you freaking work hard and you treat people well and you give back to the community. Like, that's what life is all about, right? Like, you don't have to be a certain way in a box. When the people on the East Coast, conservative, you know, they're not living a life as good as you are. I mean, as service oriented, right? As community driven. They're not the husbands that you are, right? The uncle that you are. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, this dude did it on his own terms and ultimately did it the right way and made a huge impact on so many people.
Well, and you just were talking about it, and I was thinking about this when you were talking. It's almost as though his soul caught up with who the person he wanted to be. Like, ultimately, he became like, you know, you look at him, you'd say like the dude, you know, like he
Totally.
became that person, like walking around Hermosa Beach with Kevin. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, it really is crazy. And you got to realize, I mean, for lack of a better term, it's one of the coolest places you can live on the planet. And he walks around there like he's the mayor. I've gotten messages from people who I know through whether this podcast or through sports. And people are like, oh my gosh, I knew your brother. I didn't know he was your brother. You know, like
Yeah.
that is holy shit. That was Kevin. I'm like, yeah.
Totally.
So many people knew who he was. And yeah, I mean, people will forever know who he is. Mike,
Yeah.
you're in a lifeboat. Okay. It's Angela and Lee Fitzgerald, and the lifeboat starts to take on water.
Uh-huh.
Who do you've got to let one person out. Who is it?
Like, out, like, to die?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I got it. Like,
Those are Kevin's ex-girlfriends.
Lee F is sober, you know, and works a great program. I don't know Angela anymore. I got to go with Lee.
We're going with Lee. Yeah. It's so cool because so many of, you know, obviously we've sung Patty's praises, right? And it's like it's the real deal. You know, she's in our lives right now. She'll be in our lives forever. But there were other women who came before her, and they weren't like necessarily sideshows. Kevin was, as much as he liked to stay independent and like a soloist, right? As far as our family was concerned, he always came back home. We got to know so many of these people, right? When we were indifferent. Our home was like a central point
Totally.
for Kevin's life. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes to his detriment, as he would tell you. Mom and dad got to know his friends too well.
You know, I had a moment where I after we came back from seeing him when he passed and before he passed, I brought mom home, right? And God bless her, it's been tough, and you know, that's her son, and I can't imagine. But she's hanging in. She's been real strong. I'm proud of her. You know, I get her inside, and as I was leaving, I looked through we have a big picture window, and I saw us there, like laughing, because we had an unbelievable Easter for my mom's 80th birthday. Like, Kevin and mom were in a great spot. It was like, I mean, what does Scott Van Pelt say? Sublime. Like, it was just,
yeah.
It was unbelievable. And it's almost like this was coming, because it was just and I looked in the window and saw it, and I was like gutted, but like grateful, you know, like it was like, we're just so blessed that we had all these phenomenal moments with them, you know, like I'll never forget like that coming back and looking and like it was out of a stupid TV show, though. I saw it. I saw us there and everybody was laughing.
Yeah.
You know, that'll be there forever.
Well, I mean, and like we were talking about, there were several visits 4 or 5 over the last like 6, 7 months. We're talking about people who live in 3 different states. You know, really. I mean, we were home for the Phillies World Series. We were there for the Chili Peppers. He
Yeah,
came home because mom's sick. You know, we all come home in April for Mother's Day. I mean, it was nonstop, dude. The
it
Christmas
was.
before that.
And let me say this: he did a lot of the travel back here, him and Patty, but he also quarterbacked a lot. Like
A lot, a lot.
Super Bowl, you guys coming? What
Yeah.
days? We're like, oh shit, like yeah. So we last 5 Super Bowls, I think, like
Yeah.
we're there watching the game with him, Patty, Gavin, whoever, whatever the Rough Riders come over, having a blast. We're there for 4 days,
Depends
like
on Gavin's relationship status.
oh my god.
Right.
But yeah, I guess we'll leave that go. That's not our story to tell. Gavin.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I had. Mike, anything else you wanted to bring up?
You know, there's
We can certainly do this again. Go ahead.
yeah, so there's just so much. I'm that like all the stuff, the feelings I'm feeling. I'm like, I said this to Patty the other day, and I think you like I didn't know that I loved him this much. Like I just like you know, I can look and go, okay, I can conceptualize 52 years and the last year he had, like to see where he was spiritually, to see how he lived, to see where he was with mom, the last 8 to 10 years of our relationships, like everything before that. Like maybe this was like how it was supposed to end. Like maybe 52 years of that full life, of the lives he impacted, the service work he did. Maybe this is how it's supposed to end. I still can't I still am not at peace with it yet, like it hurts a lot still, like, like our text strain, the three of us, like back and forth, like just I would just send a picture of you that I cropped in like a hairdo on, like that was so stupid. And he just like he was our audience a lot, like, because out, in other places, he's the guy, busting chops and all, but with us, he was the audience a lot, and he freaking loved it, man. Like he laughed so hard, and you know, we're all gonna miss different things, but I'm gonna miss where, that was a pretty great dynamic. It was, that stands out. I was talking to our uncle and
Marty?
Marty, and this one hit me when he's, Uncle Marty, um, you know, Kevin would always say, hey, I talked to Uncle Lou, I talked to Uncle
I
Marty.
know, right? Yeah.
Then we'd be like, dude, is he really calling these guys? Like, I don't believe it. There's so much going on. And you come to find, like, yeah, he's doing that. Like, and Uncle Marty said,
And by the way, he's calling these guys while they're going through stuff,
yeah,
like
yeah,
their own personal battles or
yeah.
whatever, right?
And he calls Uncle Marty and says, and I talked to Uncle Marty, and Uncle Marty says, I'm reading all this stuff, and I had no idea that he was doing so many wonderful things for the community, and he helped so many people. And he paused and he said, and I just can't believe that he's doing all this stuff with his thriving practice. He's battling cancer off and on, and he still had time to call me a couple times a week. That sums it up, man. Like, and if I can hold on to anything about Kevin and his story, it's like I thought I was doing things really well, right? Man, I can make those phone calls. Like, when do I not feel like doing that? Like, when can I shine my light on other people? Rob, when can I reach, the potential that God has put in front of me?
And,
like
I never asked him this, but we talk about it. Like, I wonder if that was part of his getting out of self. I mean, he was doing nonstop work with other people that were in need of it, not just people in the recovery community, nonstop work with people who were in need of it. One thing that Sully told us, it's worth mentioning. Um, Sully is affiliated with the NHL, the National Hockey League, and they needed somebody to talk to players. Players basically needed therapy, player like everybody does, like I do. And Kevin was the guy that they were using. The NHL was using Kevin Sousa to talk to players that sought therapy. And by the way, and that kind of is the opposite of what you're saying. And this is where it gets frustrating for me and you and everybody else. That was just the beginning of him doing that.
Yeah, I know.
Started. Like, who knows?
Dude, and so like, yeah, who knows?
He told me, he was like, dude, I don't know who they are. I'm scared of them. I swear to God. He was like, so like they respond to him because he did, Kevin didn't give a shit who you were.
No, dude, nobody impressed him. Like that was the thing. Like, and then, his practice was growing, right? And he had like some like billionaires and famous people. And I was always like, dude, just give me a
He would never
nugget.
tell us, dude.
Like, come on. Like, who's
Like he's wrong.
yeah, like he would never tell us
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what about? He's like, nah, dude, I can't tell you, you idiot. Like, all right. Like, come on, man. Like, just one.
Yeah. And he was the best kind of therapist too, because he was or maybe the worst kind, depending on who you ask, because he was always busy. He was sought after to the point and in demand that he was available all the time for his clients because of, I think, the relationship that they had, whether it was an agreement or whatever, that, okay,
Totally.
Kevin would charge enough, or he was in that rare air where, okay, I got to be available all the time, and
You
so
can't afford me.
yeah. Oh no, he said that to me once.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, dude, you couldn't afford me.
Yeah, that's what he would say to us.
But he said
right?
that like 2010 when he was like in
Yeah.
grad school.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Which
it
is
was
true,
the
by the way.
greatest. We're like, oh, really? Huh? Okay. And then, I don't know, like, it was just, the journey's been unbelievable with him. Like, it's just been amazing. I don't even know. There's so many more things that I
Yeah,
just,
and even the recent years, something like, and it's almost like surreal. Like I put that on my Instagram feed when he was the guy Carter Evans on the CBS Evening News with
yeah,
Norah O'Donnell did a feature on surf therapy, and who would be the main character of the focal point of the story was Kevin. I mean, obviously, aside from the folks who needed the recovery, but Kevin is just larger than life on this
yeah,
news. And I said at the time, he's eclipsed my television news career in 6 seconds. He would like literally or a minute and a half segment. He just steals the show. And he says,
yeah.
when these guys are out here and he's talking about the veterans who are getting the surf therapy or the people who need the surf therapy for Jimmy Miller. Is it the Jimmy Miller Foundation?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, for the Jimmy Miller Foundation. He said, when they're out there on the wave, all they have is right here, right now.
Mm.
And it's like that is who he was. And those words live on forever within us. And I'm happy. I am happy for the illustration through news articles. There's just an unbelievable article in him and the Easy Rider. The Hermosa, I guess, the tabloid out there, right?
Tabloid?
A tabloid, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mike? We could go forever. I can't keep
Now,
it long.
yeah, no, it's the stuff out there. What?
I think people are going to enjoy this.
What
about Todd Glass?
That's Todd. Their relationship was so special. There's just so much, but Todd is like, he's showing, like, sending texts like, I can't believe that we lived our lives as two adult males with it. Like, it would be like Todd, like when Todd's mom was dying, he would help him out with things. And Todd will be the first to tell you, like, I couldn't have gotten through it without Kevin.
Yeah.
Todd had a friend of his who his son was struggling, and the friend's son went to he referred him to Kevin, and Kevin saw him. And this is the kind of therapist Kevin was. So like a year ago, Kevin says to this guy who's a young adult now, look, you don't need to come see me anymore. Like, and this is as told by Todd, like, you can fly now. Like, you've got it. Like, you've got this. And when this young adult heard about Kevin's death, he was like, oh my God, like, I can't believe he said that to me just recently, or within the last year. Like, and I feel like I am flying, but also, like, I always thought I would have him in my back pocket somewhere, but at the end of the day, he doesn't need Kevin in his back pocket, because Kevin worked with him to help him get to this spot, like, but that's the shit, man. Like, therapy, some of them would just keep these people on to milk them. Kevin's like, you're good. Like, I don't want you to come to me for 10 years. Come to me for 3 years. Like, let's get you better.
Yeah.
Let's get things figured out and get out of here. Like, that's the kind of guy that he was. He probably also thought he could open up a spot and then charge an extra $25 an hour. Maybe. I don't know how that works, but that was the guy. What's going on? Where's our internet? You there?
Oh no, I'm here. All right, I want to do one thing before you leave, because this was Kevin's favorite thing about that I ever did. Kevin was so sweet to us and about our successes and to your success. I can remember multiple times, or at least I remember one time we went up to your office. We saw everybody you worked with.
Yeah.
There were one time I was calling a game this last year, and he was on a yacht with the binders, right? And he sends me a video of him watching the game I'm doing on ESPN. But this was the thing he was most proud of. I'm gonna play this, Mike.
Oh God. I can't hear.
Can't hear it?
No.
Forget it then. Hold on. I think you people can hear it. Just listen, all right? This is me impersonating my mom, and Kevin loved it.
Post stroke.
This is after a stroke. Now, okay, Mike, I don't think you could hear that very well, but people at home could, or driving or listening. That was one. Now, Kevin put together this trip for us to come home and honor mom, and have this beautiful reception. And mom called me and had looked in and noticed that wedding receptions are longer than 4 or 5 hours, and that we needed to get, if we were going to have a birthday, we're longer than 3 hours. So if we were going to have a party for her, it needed to be more
for her 80th.
4 hours. Yeah.
More than 4 hours. Like, I mean, that's the shit, dude. Like he loved all that stuff.
He
like
did.
It was like, and he was, dude.
He loved the laugh.
He loved the laugh. Every picture we have, the dude is smiling. Some of them are good smiles. Some of them are bitter beer face smile. Even when he wasn't drinking, like he just, because he didn't give a shit how he looked in pictures. Me and you were like, we're standing up straight, like tilting our head the right way, so vain. He's like,
yeah,
he could give a shit.
Well, that's
dude.
comfort in your own skin.
Yeah, his confidence was oozing, man. Like,
Mike, Gwen S and Jenna B are in a boat. It starts to take on water. You're in the boat. You have to get rid of one of them. These are two other Kevin's experts.
Okay, great question. Look, that changed recently because Gwen has reached out and sent some beautiful heartfelt notes. So I got to go with Gwen. I know, dude. And Gwen's I got to go with people. Gwen.
Yeah.
Jenna B though, man, cute as a little mouse.
Gwen was awesome. And the reason I bring them up, it's funny, but Kevin was such a prolific figure in my life growing up. These women were like celebrities. It was really larger than life. Anything else?
No, man.
It felt very good. I can't thank you enough for doing that.
Oh, dude, I love it. It was really good for me, And look, it's fun. Like all the stuff people have posted, like Patty's post was like unbelievable. Yours was perfect, man. And it's like, I can't. I just like you. I think you spoke perfectly for both of us, and I also, part of me is kind of waiting to see, like, there's got to be a scandal out there somewhere. Like it can't all be this good. Like something's got to break. Like, I don't know, man. Like there's got to be something out there.
We both said that. I was like, Jesus.
What?
Yeah, we both said that. We're like, this is unbelievable.
Yes, there's got to be something out, like somebody out there, like
This is not encouragement. This is not a come forward.
Yeah, please. No, but obviously, like
it's like on the news when we do a story, a cold case, and the sheriff says somebody out there knows something.
I was locked in Kevin's basement. Yeah. Nah, man, like the real deal, dude. Like, I'm so honored to have like been through this whole thing with him, and I definitely felt close to him at times now. And dude, I hope I keep this forever. But I'm like, man. Like on the way in today, made a couple phone calls like 7:30 this morning. Like I wouldn't normally do that. Like I just want to keep reaching out for me. For he would always exhaust us when we were there. Like, dude, we're going to Guitar Mike's. We're like, dude, we just ate. Like, Guitar Mike's. Then we're gonna ride motorbikes to Gavin's, and then I'm like, dude,
what about when you were out there after your surgery and Nate had like a record party, and he's like, you're coming, right?
Yeah. I'm like, dude, I just had 2 discs replaced 2.5 days ago. It's like, you can walk, just come for 1 second. All right, got to see good. you got to see Music Nate. I'm like, everyone had that name, Music Nate. And I went. It was great. Like, yeah, dude, he was just, it's magic, man.
He brought so many people together. Like I was saying the other night, we would go out to see him, and we'd be going to dinner with Patty, and he'd be like, "Yeah, Frida's coming too." We're like, "Who?"
Oh, yeah, we're like,
he never met her.
You and I,
yeah,
honestly, would be like, dude,
this is the vibe, dude.
We would have our aside, like definitely, like this is gonna, like the vibe is gonna suck now, and we'd be there, and this person was there, and they were like the most loving, kind, wonderful, person. We're like, oh God, that was so great, like.
And now I get to follow them on Instagram, and whenever they post something, I think of my brother.
Yeah, dude, like that's the stuff, man. Like we still have that mentality time. Like it's like what would, like, how Kevin lives, what would he do? Like, God, he was just so out there, man. And the more I'm learning, the better I can be as a man, as a father, as a person in sobriety, as a worker, like, which is beautiful. I didn't realize that I always know I need to work on myself, but I got a ways to go to reach up to where he was. And I cannot believe I'm saying that, right? like, come on, dude. Like, it's
I still am thinking about getting a tattoo.
Oh yeah. What about Lily?
What about what I told you when I was like, what should I do about the tattoo? Should I get like a big one on my back? We were in Hermosa. What did you say? Remember?
Yeah. What did I know? What did I say?
I go, maybe I should get like a big one on my back, like to honor him. And Lily was like, yeah, maybe we should do that. Like, here are the two of us, right? Brain surgeons are putting together this plan. And you're like, I think you guys need to just take a beat.
Yeah.
You're like, let's not go on vacation. And I get some fucked up hat, and I come home and I'm thinking, wow, that looks on vacation. You're like,
oh, boy, where am I? I can't wait to wear this sombrero to work on Tuesday. Like, guys, let's not get out of here with a fucking sleeve tattoo of Kevin's face. Like, let's just.
We were ready.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But Lily's still in. So yeah. I mean, we got to figure it out. I want something. I just want,
without being overt, something that he would like,
Yeah, dude. I do remember at one point he was saying, I don't know if he was screwing with us or not. He was telling me, like, he's like, dude, I've thought about getting a sleeve of tattoos, and I remember thinking, like, dude, don't do that. Like, you not having tattoos.
He didn't.
Yes, like everyone out there, like, got all this shit. Like, he didn't need it. Like, and I think he was just messing with me, but I don't know. Like, I wonder sometimes, like, was he really gonna get a sleeve? That would have been awful.
I know I'm his little brother, but I think a lot of people would agree. Like, that guy didn't need to get any cooler. Like, he was unadulterated. It was perfect.
No, Shady Chuck was cool like the Fonz. That's awful.
All right, we've been an hour and a half.
We said it all.
Mike, I love you. I
love you too, buddy. Yeah, dude, this,
you think we said anything that'll get us in trouble?
No, I don't know. Okay. Oh, but do we want to tell people what we've decided about, like, because, our dynamic of, like, having three brothers has been so amazing. Like, tell me,
you and Todd Glass came up with this, right?
Yeah, well, we want to audition people to play the role of Kevin. It won't be the same, but I'm hoping, like, I think we get Stamos maybe, like, to read for it a little bit. Todd was like, I can play younger. I'm like, nah. But then Todd thought we should just, like, have adopt a kid like the Brady's did, like, have that Oliver come in. Like, yeah,
or like Leo DiCaprio.
Exactly. Just something to, feel like ratings are dropping. Kevin's dead. Like, we got to do something, but you can't fill those shoes. It's got to be
like when Valerie's family became like Hogan's family.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, when they added Sandy Duncan. Sandy Duncan was gone. Yeah, no, Valerie Harper was gone, and they added Sandy Duncan.
But what happened though? All those shows tried that.
No,
they jumped the shark. Yeah. Like, they were never the same. And I don't think we'll still
decide against recasting our brother.
I don't know about that yet. Wait, let's just see who auditions. Let's just see who comes in first. But you can't fill those shoes, man. I'm gonna miss them. I miss them every day. But man, were we fucking blessed to have him as a big brother.
Well, it's unbelievable. All right, man. Love you, Mike.
Love you, buddy. Thanks for having me. This was great. It's an honor.
All right, bye. Thanks so much for listening to The Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Sousa. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.